The purpose of these lessons is to show you the logic behind the most basic Chinese characters, beginning with the simplest pictograms, and later combining these elements to create more complex characters. Today's lesson is the 5th installment, introducing 8 more characters with that abbreviated ceremonial knife, xin, which appears to be li, meaning to stand, as in 站立起来. There are an additional 4 characters that help explain the others in some way, for a total of 12 in all. As I've explained in every lesson in this series, this ceremonial knife was originally used for bloodletting as a religious purification ritual during the ancient Shang dynasty around 1600 BC. Much later, in the Han dynasty, starting in 200 BC, bloodletting was looked upon as a repugnant practice, and this ceremonial knife had long since been used for tattooing, or otherwise inflicting scars on criminals and slaves as punishment. Today's first character, added to help explain the others, is the pictograph of a soaring bird whose head, neck, and wings are visible. Pronounced first tone 飞, it naturally means to fly. 歹徒把大使的汽车给炸飞了. The gangsters blew up the ambassador's car. 人人都很开心，时间就像飞的一样过去了. Everyone was happy and time just flew by. 他从事出口业，常常需要从北京飞到东京. He's an exporter and often needs to fly from Beijing to Tokyo. 若飞虫常常找光亮，为何它们不在白天出动? If flying insects often seek light, why don't they go out during the day? To express the idea of flying at top speed, here's a new verb combination, 飞驰, and a new idiom, 飞驰而过. 往南京的列车飞驰而过. The train to Nanjing flew by. 哥骑着新买的机车飞驰而过. Our brother sped by on his newly purchased motorcycle. I say our brother because using 哥 alone means you're talking to a family member. 南下飞驰的火车撞上了北上的列车. A high-speed southbound train collided with one traveling north. A variation on 飞驰而过 is 飞驰而去, with basically the same meaning with a slight direction change. 他上了车，飞驰而去. He got in his car and sped off. 在我们讲话的当时，时光无情地飞驰而去. Time is flying by relentlessly as we speak. Now we can create the term for an airplane, 飞机, and the expression to take off, 起飞. 飞机正在滑行到位. The aircraft is taxiing into position. 我们的飞机就要起飞了. Our plane is about to take off. 昨天有一班飞机飞往丹麦. There was a flight to Denmark yesterday. The measure word for an airplane is 一架飞机, but the measure word for a flight is 一班飞机. Scheduled flights are referred to as 班机. The verb to fly in a plane is 飞行, and an airplane pilot is 飞行员. 这种天气，班机不能飞行. Flights cannot navigate in this weather. 她真的想当飞机的飞行员吗？ Does she really want to be an airplane pilot? 你知道去新加坡的班机几点起飞吗？ Do you know what time the flight to Singapore leaves? Now that we've seen the character for flying, 飞, we can learn another one based on it, pronounced fourth tone, 迅, meaning swift, rapid, or sudden. It's obviously a slimmed down version of the original 飞, plus the movement radical underneath. Another character for speed from lesson 56 is 速, which often pairs up with 迅, becoming 迅速, meaning quick, swift, or by leaps and bounds. 警车从我们的左车道迅速通过. The police car passed quickly in the left lane. 警员迅速地追逐到持枪的歹徒. The police officers quickly caught up with the gunman. 小赖迅速而激情地看了他一眼. 小赖 shot him a wary glance. 开刀后，他的腰迅速地一天比一天好. After the surgery, his lower back rapidly improved each day. 这种见解在这里正迅速得到人们的公认. That view is quickly gaining traction here. Lightning speed is translated by the idiom 迅如闪电. 滑雪者动作迅如闪电地滑下山. The skiers raced down the mountain at lightning speed. 你看那位国术高手，动作迅如闪电. Watch that martial arts master with his lightning-fast moves. Now we come to the main phonetic character in today's lesson, the character for the dragon, pronounced second tone, 龙. An abbreviated knife, 心, appears above the flesh, 肉, radical on the left, with the sketch of a flying bird on the right. Dragons are said to be very auspicious, serpent-like creatures inhabiting the clouds, able to appear and disappear, grow and shrink at will. The abbreviated 心 would indicate that this mythical animal underwent purification and became tame. The flesh radical 肉 underneath, however, is a corruption of the dragon's huge mouth and teeth, as seen in the early oracle bone script. Some etymologists also contend that what looks like 利 is actually the animal's antlers or horns, and is therefore not the ceremonial knife 心 at all. No one really knows because there are no actual dragons around to check, although there are countless drawings and paintings of them with various types of horns. The Dragon Boat Festival is celebrated in Chinatowns around the world in the month of June, so the term for a dragon boat is 龙舟. Here's one example. 我们一起去看河上的龙舟. Let's go down to see the dragon boats on the river. More useful is the way Chinese uses the dragon as a descriptive word in many phrases and idioms. 车水马龙, for example, is used to describe an endless stream of traffic. Literally translated, it would be carriages flowing like water and a procession of horses winding like a dragon. 亲朋好友都到了，门口车水马龙. There's a lot of traffic at the gate with all our friends and relatives here. An old-fashioned water tap or faucet apparently conjured up fanciful images of the dragon and its horns, because the Chinese phrase for it is 水龙头, a water dragon's head. 我把水龙头打开，水就来了。I turned on the tap and water came out. 冷水，水龙头在流水，哪个小朋友没关？ The cold water faucet is running. Which one of you didn't turn it off? 这是不是像水龙头？你要开就开，要关就关。Is this like a faucet where you turn it on and off whenever you want? Now I'll introduce the first of today's extra characters that will appear in another idiom with the dragon. But we'll need to review two earlier characters found in Lesson 62. You recall that 涌 is a pictogram of two streams converging into a large river, which continues onward until it reaches the sea. From this image, Chinese derives the meaning of forever, eternal, or permanent. Pai is the reverse of 涌. In other words, a river diverging into two smaller streams. As a verb, it means to dispatch or send someone off on a mission. As a noun, it means different factions, the result of a divergence of views. Today's new character replaces the water radical in pai with the flesh radical rou. It's pronounced fourth tone, mai, and means the pulse, or the blood vessels which spread like a river and its tributaries throughout the body. Our first example is the combination for an artery, 动脉. When taking a patient's pulse, Western medical doctors and nurses use the term 把脉. However, instead of Western medicine, many Chinese people, especially of the older generation, prefer the skills of a traditional Chinese doctor who treats patients using methods that are thousands of years old, but often amazingly effective. For example, a traditional doctor might prescribe various herbs to be boiled in water and taken orally. He might apply acupuncture needles or use other forms of physical manipulation of the joints and bones. So, Western-trained physicians say 把脉, while Chinese traditional doctors prefer to say 切脉, because it's a much more complicated process. A highly skilled traditional doctor, not all of them are, will place 3 fingers at 3 positions on the wrist and press each finger up and down carefully to 3 different depths. They're not counting heartbeats. They're attempting to discern the different qualities of tension as blood passes through the artery. Their diagnosis and herbal prescriptions are based on the result of the pulse quality at these 9 positions. I tried to learn this technique, but it takes decades of practice and very sensitive fingertips, something I did not possess. My young Chinese doctor even had to give up playing the guitar because strumming guitar strings dulled the sensation in his fingertips. Anyway, back to the lesson with this example of 切脉. 大夫，给你切脉才能够知道你的问题出在哪里. Only by taking your pulse can a traditional doctor know what your problem is. Now we come to a new idiom containing this character, 来龙去脉, meaning the ins and outs of a matter, or the origin and development of a problem. Literally, the coming of the dragon and where it went. 我不知道这件事的来龙去脉。I don't know the whole story. 我无法把它的来龙去脉用言语说出来。I can't precisely put into words the sequence of events. When paired with 命脉, we have the translation for lifeblood or lifeline, literally the life and pulse. 贸易是我国的命脉. Trade is the lifeblood of our country. 创新是技术重要的命脉. Innovation is the vital life force of technology. 种棉花是这个小镇的命脉. Growing cotton is the lifeline of this town. Since 脉 refers to the veins and arteries spread throughout the body, 人脉 means the network of personal connections and contacts a person has at his or her disposal. 这个人的人脉很好. This person has good connections. 想成就事业，人脉至关重要. If you want to succeed in your career, connections are crucial. 从事生意，你最需要的是人脉. Who you know is most important in business. 要出人头地，你要有本事和人脉关系. To get ahead, you need skills and useful contacts. 重要时刻，有人脉才是王道. At important times, having good contacts is the way to go. The expression 王道 originally referred to righteous government, literally the royal road, or the benevolent rule of a monarch. This meaning has expanded in common speech to indicate a tried and true approach, an easy method, or the proper way to do something. Here are 3 more examples of this new phrase. 中国以儒家的王道思想为中心. China holds the Confucian concept of benevolent rule as fundamental. 有人脉的支持，才是从事生意的王道. Having the support of good connections is key in business. 出国时，信用卡很好使用，现金不再是王道. When going abroad, credit cards are easy to use. Cash is no longer king. Returning to 脉, meaning the veins and arteries of the body, this character was also borrowed to describe a mountain range, 山脉, which, when viewed from above, does resemble a vein-like network. 这个山脉以东是越南的领土. To the east of this mountain range is Vietnamese territory. Our next idiom contains the character 脉, but it actually contains a mistake on the part of some scribe, which then became the accepted form. This idiom is 默含情, pronounced differently, 默, because it had at one time been written with the I radical, 目, not the flesh radical, 肉. Today, however, you should consider 脉, a split sound character with a second pronunciation of 默. The original 默 means to look demurely to one side, to silently communicate one's affection or love, said especially, but not always, of young girls. Notice that 默含情 can also be switched around as 含情默, with both versions being correct. 他默含情地看他一眼， She glanced at him tenderly. 她含情脉脉地看着那位女侍者。He glazed amorously at the waitress. The dragon, 龙, is a useful phonetic component of several common characters. Today's second character combines the bamboo, 竹, radical, with 龙 to create the character for a cage or the woven bamboo basket used in Chinese steamers. A cage is 笼子。山猫在笼子里不停地来回走动。The lynx kept pacing back and forth in its cage. 山猫 is the same term for a bobcat or a wildcat. 那些蛇本来在笼子里，有人把笼子打开，蛇就溜了。The snakes were in a cage, but someone opened it and they escaped. 我被关在笼子里，像狗一样，可是我是清白无辜的。I'm locked in a cage like a dog, but I'm innocent. Chinese steamed buns, 包子, and steamed dumplings, 小笼包, whether meat or vegetable filled, are cooked in bamboo steamers and found in many restaurants and night markets, or can even be purchased from itinerant street vendors. They're usually sold by the steamer tray, 一笼, containing from 6 to 8 buns or dumplings. The expression 出笼 means fresh out of the steamer when referring to 包子 or 小笼包, but this can also be a metaphor for something that appears or has just come out, such as new products, new regulations, or new publications. 今年的最新计划要出笼了。This year's latest plan is coming out soon. 早上7点钟，很抢手的肉包子就出笼了。The popular meat buns come hot out of the steamer at 7 o'clock in the morning. 有关新闻机构的新法规1月就出笼了。New regulations for news organizations came out in January. Our third character, based on 龙, is another one pronounced the same, meaning to be or go deaf. Most dictionaries say a deaf person is like someone whose head has been covered by a tightly woven basket, the 笼 we just learned, and thus cannot hear properly. A deaf person is referred to as 聋子, and deafness is translated as 耳聋. 我不是聋子，你用不着大叫。I'm not deaf, you don't need to shout. 耳聋眼花是高龄人必须面对的问题之一。Deafness and blurry vision is one of the problems that elderly people have to face. To say someone is or has been deaf, the usual expression is 聋了。我外婆耳朵全聋了20年，什么也听不见。My grandmother has been completely deaf for 20 years and can't hear a thing. 因为童年在工厂里工作的关系，使他两耳都聋了。He was deaf in both ears as a result of his working in a factory as a child. Today's fourth character, based on the 聋 phonetic, adds the hand radical 手 to create third tone 龙. The ancient Chinese said that the dragon ruled the clouds in the sky and caused them to cluster together. So, 龙 means to draw together, to gather up, or to come up alongside, as of a boat to a dock. 我的手指僵得合拢不来. My fingers were so stiff I couldn't bend them. 我们合不拢，见解背道而驰. We can't get along. Our views are totally opposite. Notice the idiom 背道而驰, which means to run counter to, or to be out of keeping with. Literally, to ride swiftly the opposite way. 他亲一亲她那对合拢的眼睛. He planted kisses on her closed eyes. Extended senses of 拢, such as the phrase 拉拢, include befriending someone in order to win them over to one's side, or making two persons become friends. 你们两个拉拢在一起，那是你们的命. You two were brought together by fate. 中国想拉拢联合国其他的成员国来和它合作. China wants to win over other UN member states to cooperate with it. Another phrase is 收拢, meaning to gather things up. 等我一下，我把书收收拢. Wait a moment while I put these books away. 把你地上凌乱的东西收拢一下，乱得不像话了. Gather up those things scattered around on the floor. It's terribly messy. By pairing 围 or 聚 with 拢, 围拢 or 聚拢, we have the meaning of people gathering around. 人们围拢过来，听和尚讲道. People gathered around to listen to the monk's sermon. 人们聚拢过来，很想知道出了什么事情. Everybody gathered around, wondering what was going on. Before adding a fifth offshoot of the dragon, we need to review the character 猴 from lesson 53. You'll recall that 猴 consists of a steep cliff, two person radicals, one on the left and one above the cliff, and the arrow. The original oracle bone pictogram showed an arrow being shot far away, literally way above the cliff. Later versions added the person on top, and later still another person radical to the left. Some etymologists contend that the so-called steep cliff is actually a cloth target that the arrow was aimed at. Either way, the original meaning of 猴 was a target and the skill of archery, which became a metaphor for an emperor dispatching nobles on faraway missions. Later, it became the general term for the second highest rank of nobility in ancient China, known as 诸侯, the feudal princes and dukes under an emperor. If we add a mouth radical, 口, to the 侯 phonetic, we arrive at another second tone 侯, which refers to the throat. Notice, too, that the green person radical on the left is actually the result of combining the arms of the person crouched atop the cliff with the side of the cliff itself, resulting in an extra person on the left. This is an obvious miscopying of the original, but is now the standard written form. This new character, hou, meaning the throat, is never used alone, but is paired with yet another mouth radical character with the dragon phonetic, giving us a second character meaning throat. Second tone, long. Together, hou long is the common term for throat. My dictionary says the dragon, being long and serpent-like, was chosen as the phonetic because our throat is a long tube connected to our mouth and suggestive of that mythical dragon. Here are two sentences containing 喉咙. 你的狗的喉咙里卡了一根骨头. Your dog has a bone stuck in its throat. Remember that bone can be pronounced either 骨头 or 骨头. 他清了清喉咙，好像要对我们讲大道理. He cleared his throat as if about to lecture us. Today's sixth character, based on the dragon phonosemantic element, is the roof radical suspended above the dragon, pronounced third tone, 宠. Since the dragon was a supernatural and divine creature, when placed under a roof, it represented the homes of the highly esteemed and dignified nobility. And, being the uppermost class in society, 宠 came to mean the favors one graciously bestows on those of lower social standing. From there, 宠 became a term for a concubine, child, or pet that one loves and is very fond of, and a verb meaning to show fondness toward, to favor, or dote on a person or beloved pet. 你太宠她了. You're spoiling her. 小朋友们当然想要被宠一宠. Of course, little kids want to be pampered. 我的宠猫死了，太太一点也不在乎. My pet cat died and my wife didn't care one bit. 我就是看不顺眼他那个又懒又被宠的侄子. I just don't like his lazy, spoiled nephew. 宠来宠去，你把他宠成个一事无成的不孝子. Your constant doting on him has coddled him into a good-for-nothing failure of a son. To gain favor is 得宠, and to fall out of favor is expressed as 失宠. 听说那个百货行现今已失宠了. I heard that department store is not so popular now. 出事后他在电影界再也不得宠了. After that incident, she fell out of favor in the film industry. 这种时尚貂皮大衣今年重新得宠. This stylish mink coat is back in fashion this year. 他本是国王的宠儿，意外事件之后就失宠了. He was the king's favorite, but fell out of favor after the accident. 他因为得宠而被赏了此地位，不是有何种本事. It was through favoritism that he was rewarded with this position, not because of any ability. 小汽车失宠是因为中国人把大车和面子联想在一起. Small cars have fallen in disfavor because Chinese people associate big cars with face. When someone is favored by the powers that be, his or her views will be trusted over everyone else's. Chinese has a term for this, which is 宠信. 国王 对这些诸侯特别宠信。The king looked favorably on these dukes and placed too much trust in them. 爸爸宠信儿子的说辞，不会理你的说明。Dad believes his son's excuses, and your explanation will be given short shrift. 就是因为宰相久得国王宠信，别人生怕反对他。The Prime Minister has long been the king's trusted confidant, and others are afraid of opposing him. Today's seventh character, containing a dragon, is composed of the open shed radical with a dragon below it. That open shed was originally an open structure built under an overhanging cliff, often used to keep animals, or, as we saw in ma, to air dry hemp fibers. Anyway, this new character is pronounced second tone pang. It means huge or enormous, because, as rulers of the clouds, dragons could fly. So this structure must have a vast interior space. It's most commonly found in the phrase 庞大。这么庞大的计划，在短时间内可行吗？ Is such a vast scheme feasible in a short time? 有了这么庞大的开支，这生意无法持久。With such massive expenses, the business could not last. 包围我们的庞大世界，除了气候上的大问题， the vast world that surrounds us has a serious climate problem. Our eighth and final character, composed of the phono-semantic dragon element, positions 龙 above the clothing radical 衣 to create second tone 喜. This character originally had 2 dragons, but fortunately for students today, it was simplified to just 1. Etymologists say 龙 is the phonetic element, but 喜 is a far cry from 龙 phonetically, and an even farther cry from the original double dragon, which is pronounced ta. I've colored the dragon purple anyway to signify the phonetic element, but I can't explain why. As for the meaning of this character, the dragon is considered an auspicious animal, so doubling it could have been to emphasize the good fortune needed by someone in the afterlife, because 喜 originally referred to special undergarments worn by a deceased person at his or her burial. On top of these undergarments is another outer set of clothing for a total of 2 layers. This definition may sound a bit too specific for students to learn because very few Chinese know the original meaning of 喜. However, the extended sentences are much more common and useful, beginning with the meaning of double or overlapping from those original double dragons and those 2 layers of clothing. For example, when a certain feeling comes over you, or a pleasant fragrance overwhelms you, the expression to choose is 袭来 or its variations. 一种可怕的阴影迅速向他心头袭来. A terrible shadow quickly came over him. 从那天起，这个想法时时向我袭来. From that day on, this idea kept occurring to me. 他不顺的童年，常使不好的念头袭上心头. She's often haunted by unpleasant thoughts from her troubled childhood. 山坡上， 都是香气袭人的花，是个好景点。An overwhelming fragrance of flowers fills the air, making this hillside a good scenic spot. Another use of this connotation of double or overlapping is the expression 世袭, meaning hereditary, literally one generation overlapping or carrying over to the next. 他是一位世袭的诸侯。He was a hereditary duke under the emperor. 中国是世界上最早把父姓定为世袭的国家。China was the first country in the world to make the father's surname hereditary. And finally, from those overlapping garments has developed the meaning of attacking or assailing an enemy. Similar to the English expression to redouble one's efforts, 袭 in this usage derives from those double dragons again and refers to doubling the number of troops without the enemy's knowledge and rushing to overwhelm their defenses. Without more specific characters related to warfare and combat, I can only offer one example today within our vocabulary range. 想打人的话，你必须袭其不意，才有可能。If you intend to attack someone, you have to catch him unawares. In this sentence, 其 is the third-person pronoun he, him, or someone. Here is our color chart with today's 12 characters. 飞迅龙宠脉龙拢龙旁袭龙 and 侯。Here's a recap from today's lesson. 1. This lesson introduces 8 more characters with the ceremonial knife, xin, reduced to its top half, which looks exactly like 立, meaning to stand, as in 站立起来. Those 8 characters are based on the dragon, 龙, as the phonetic, and possibly also the semantic element. 2. Before introducing the dragon, 龙, it was necessary to explain where the right half of the character originated, which is the pictogram of a bird in flight, 飞. And with knowledge of 飞 to fly, it was a simple matter to see the connection between 飞 and 迅, meaning speedy or quick. 3. Returning to the dragon 龙 and its offshoots, we saw 龙 with the bamboo radical, as in 小笼包 for steamed dumplings. 龙 with the ear radical, as in 聋子 for a deaf person. 拢 with the hand radical, as in 拉拢 to befriend a person to win them over. 龙 with the mouth radical, as in 喉咙 for throat. 宠 with the roof radical, as in 得宠 to gain favor with someone. 庞 with the open shed radical, as in 庞大 for something huge or vast. 袭 with the clothing radical, as in 世袭 for hereditary. 4. And finally, I included two characters unrelated to the dragon, long, and the ceremonial knife, xin, in order to create idioms or phrases with the other 8. They were mai, found in the idiom 来龙去脉, the origin and development of an incident, and hou, to complete the usual term for the throat, hou long. Now you will find a short quiz on double, triple character, and longer expressions. Answer using only the characters learned so far. Thank you for watching and listening.